Uzi in the stands, I'ma hit you on the slide. I don't never slip. When I'm on a plane, only time a nigga trip. Team been the same since we came from the rip. Money never down, we just waiting.
Welcome to Fluent and Chill. Since you don't know, because it's the first time you probably heard that, that's Xavier Top Floor with the flip, giving us our theme song. What's up, Jay? How you doing, man?
Oh, I like it, yo. I like it a lot. But playoff basketball, Tom. That's what's up. Playoff basketball. The draft is this week. We got some stuff going on, man. We got some really good stuff going on.
So Friday's show, we're gonna talk about the draft because there's some needs from some teams, and obviously day one of the draft is Thursday. But right now we're kind of in the thick of this playoff. So we've got mail drop, we've got conspiracy, we've got our all-time greatest franchise. We're going to do the entire second round of the East today. But I want to start first. I want to give my condolences. Unfortunately, we had a tragic loss yesterday. The Brooklyn Nets were the first team to get eliminated from the playoffs in disgusting fashion.
Cancun, here we come.
Being swept. We going fishing.
Book the room.
Can I just run through kind of the series of events, if I may? Brooklyn starts the season healthy. Obviously, Kyrie's not vaccinated, so that was an issue. But they start with three superstars, a super team, if you will.
Which you love, by the way. You absolutely love it.
Love it. Yeah, it's the best. It doesn't exist. No such thing. Okay, so they got Kyrie, they got KD, they got Harden. They are Vegas favorites to win the whole damn thing. Now, we know what happens throughout the season. Kyrie can't play initially because he's not vaccinated, and that's not allowed in New York. The team, Sean Marks, etc., says, listen, we can't have a part-time player. So he's not with the team. Things go south, although they're looking good. With KD leading that team and healthy, they're in first place at one point in the season. Then KD gets hurt. They start to drop. Well, then James Harden's unhappy. I know I'm missing a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to jump through it quickly. But then Harden wants to get traded. He gets traded. He's not happy. He moves on. The team falls so far that we're not even sure they're going to make the playoffs for a time there. They end up they finishing seventh, and they're in the play-in. And the consensus is, listen, as long as they're in the play-in, maybe they're going to beat the Cavs. There's some people who thought they were going to lose and be right out of the playoffs completely. And they win that game against the Cavs. They're the 7th seed. And everyone keeps saying, it's okay. They got KD. Now Kyrie's able to play. They're going to be fine. Simmons is going to come back and play. They're going to be fine.
Tom, first of all, before you go any further, stop underscoring this. Vegas had them as the favorites, as the 7th seed to win it. Yeah. Going into the playoffs, after they beat Cleveland, Vegas had them as the favorites to win it. So stop underscoring it.
And then again, yes, and again,
they had them favorite to win it. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. This is why I say don't. When people say, "Oh, this team was the favorite," you trust in Vegas? Nah, man. Like I always say this because I'm not going to get into this conversation. I promise I'm not going to get into this conversation. However, Michael Jordan only won as the favorite. Man, if you're not the top seed, if you don't have more wins, that's what I look at. If you won 60 games and I won 55 games, you're the favorite. You have home court advantage. You're the favorite. The rest is based on reputation. Well, Jordan always wins, so of course he's the favorite. No offense, but the first two finals, LeBron loses. So against the OKC, maybe he's not the favorite. No, man. You have more wins, you're the favorite. Let's stop that now. So anyways, Vegas. So don't trust Vegas. Like, give me a break. Just trying to take your money. So Vegas has them as the lead. We say, okay, no problem. They're going to be fine. Boston's a younger team, haven't really shown, although they played good in the regular season, we don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs. They dominate them. Not only do they dominate the Nets, they make Kevin Durant look human. For the greatest scorer, top 15 player all time, both things I disagree with, they make him look very regular, very ordinary. He shoots horribly, and they lose. Here's where I want to get into it. I don't want to recap the series. We know what happened. Everyone watched. We know they got swept. Kyrie postgame basically says, I'm coming back. with Durant. And the two of us are going to be involved in the front office decisions moving forward.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
With Sean Marks and Joe, I believe, Tsai, if I say his name right. Or, yeah, Tsai, Tsai, whatever. No mention, however, of his hand-picked coach, Steve Nash. Wow. Oh, and if I may go back a step, no, I'll save Ben Simmons for the end because I have something to say about Ben Simmons. How do the Nets, with Kyrie and KD as their ipso facto GMs, remake this roster?
How do they do that?
Yeah, they've got no trade assets. I don't think they have a bunch of draft picks. What do they have to help remake this roster? Because clearly this one didn't work.
Well, we'll start the conversation with the idea that we're going to be very involved. Tone, have you ever done something around the house and you're doing it your way and then it's just not working and your wife goes, okay, that's enough out of you. We did it your way. Move out the way. Let me handle this. And it gets handled. Well, same idea when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets. We did this your way. Number one, you just said Steve Nash was handpicked. Is this not the same Kyrie Irving who told us, quote, we don't really need a coach? Well, you don't, huh? Okay, so you don't need a coach, only except you get a coach. And in the process of the Boston Celtics mopping you guys out of the playoffs, there were no adjustments made. There were no coaching. I think that Steve Nash clearly got out-coached in this series. I don't think that's even a question. Number two, when we look at you guys as the favorites, when you guys are the favorites, that matters. When I look at what this Brooklyn Nets team did and how they got dominated, this series was indicative to your entire season. It started with Kevin Durant saying, quote, I was astonished of how James Harden came into camp, what kind of shape he was in. That's the beginning of how the season is starting with you guys, which, let's make sure we remember, James Harden is notorious for coming into camp out of shape. He's notorious for that. So that's how the season starts with you guys. Now, when you talk about moving forward with this team, okay, Blake Griffin's going to be off the roster. Marcus Aldridge is going to be off the roster. You got this young kid in Cam Thomas, who I think is going to be a really good player. I think that Brown is a good player. I think that Curry is a good player. This trade that you guys made with Philadelphia, I think that's for the long term. Mm-hmm. In the short term, this idea of you, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant being involved with what's going on forward, just so you know, Milwaukee's not going anywhere. Boston isn't going anywhere. Miami isn't going anywhere. These teams are just going to get better next season. And I've said this to you, Tony, and I stand on it. When you get swept out of the playoffs, you're not close. So these offseason moves that you're talking about, they have to be dramatic. Now, Tone, we've had 3 seasons now with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. KD doesn't play one season because of his Achilles. He's recovering from that. Last year, he misses half the season because of his hamstring. Kyrie Irving gets hurt in the playoffs. They lose in the semifinals. And by the way, the year before that, they did make the playoffs with D'Angelo Russell. They did make the playoffs with D'Angelo Russell and Kyrie Irving in and out the lineup. And add all of that up to the fact that this year, you get smoked in round 1. You don't lose in round 1. You get smoked in round 1, which means we're going backwards. So because we're going backwards, Tone, this thing that we have here isn't working. And implementing you and Kevin Durant in the decision-making, that's not going to work neither because we've already tried that. And this is where we are. So you guys shouldn't be involved in anything that we're doing going forward. No, absolutely not.
Listen, I hate when any player gets involved because I'm yet to see a good player act as a general manager. And we've given these examples before, right? Jordan, we've seen as an actual general manager, horrible. As when he played for the Bulls, wanting to keep Charles Oakley, wanting to keep, every trade that they made, he didn't like. Yeah, guess what? They all worked out really well. LeBron James, let's be honest, he brought in Westbrook. in Cleveland, moved out those young guys for veterans. That's what he wanted around him.
Right.
Didn't always work. Steve Nash picked as the head coach. We all scratched our heads a little bit. Yeah, great point guard, blah blah. But if you have championship aspirations, you want to put that pressure on a rookie head coach who's never coached in the NBA. That's tough. Not even an assistant. Like, it's not like, I'll use the Raptor example where they, Dwayne Case is the coach of the year. They fire him, bring in Nick Nurse, and he leads them to a championship in his rookie season. But he had been the assistant for years, so he knew the players. He understood the system. Like, there was some background, right?
He was also the D-League coach too. He was also the D-League coach too.
He was also the D-League, yeah. So he helped develop half of those players. So he understood. So I wore my green, just so you know. I don't like green, but I wore it for the Celtics, who are as a Laker fan, it's hard for me to say this. I really like watching the Celtics play basketball. I really like watching the Celtics play basketball. But you brought up an interesting point. So Miami, now, okay, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler are probably on the wrong side in terms of age, but they're still going to be good. Atlanta's only getting better. You didn't mention Toronto. They're young. They're super young. They're going to get better. Milwaukee's not going anywhere. I mentioned on our live on Monday, if Chicago can get that anchor kind of center, Chicago's only going to get better, or at least the same. These are all the teams who finished ahead, except Atlanta, are all finished ahead of Brooklyn this year.
Cleveland on their way too, Tone. Don't lead them out.
I was getting there. So Boston, obviously, they're young. They're not going anywhere. And then we didn't even mention Cleveland, who missed the playoffs. They're young. They're going to get better. I know these guys are ways away, but Detroit is a young team that can get better. So there's the like 10 teams, at least the top 10 that finished. They're not. The East isn't going to get worse. So that Brooklyn can just take over. They're going to have to play significantly better. Yeah. Let me talk about the biggest, who is when you think of steals, the all-time leaders, who? John Stockton?
Yes.
Wrong. It's Ben Simmons. No one has stole more money from the NBA than Ben Simmons.
Crook.
He sat out and got paid the entire season and did nothing. They kept saying he was going to come back, and I said, no, he's not. Why would he come back? Why would you? Remember when I think we had this conversation. He said, oh, he's going to be back for game 4. I was like, why would he do that? Why would he come back to this situation? Yeah. You can't win. You can't win that situation, because if they lose, it's your fault. If they win, no one's going to say it's because of Ben Simmons.
Correct.
You can't. I'm sitting out. He got paid, traded. Like, is there a better business? Like, who does he? He's with Clutch.
Right.
I want Clutch to represent me.
I just think that in this situation, Tony, it would have been best to not dangle him.
Exactly.
And if you're dangling him, one thing that I found out about New York fans, the Yankees are notorious for this, where if they're starting over, they'll let it be known. We're starting over, and this is what we're starting over with. This is what we're doing moving forward. They're not telling you, well, this year we're trying to make it to the World Series. They're not. Brian Cashman is not going to do that. So with the Brooklyn Nets, you're dangling Ben Simmons, telling us, well, he may play here, instead of he's not ready, and he's going to sit out the season. That way, hands are washed. We're not having this conversation. We're not discussing Ben Simmons being a crook. We're not discussing him being selfish or soft. He's not ready. Now, when you tell us
has he done right by any team? LSU, the Sixers, the Nets. Tell me one time he's done right by his team.
Well, when I think about what he did in Philadelphia, I thought that he was good up until last year. I thought he was really good. We're talking about an all-league defender, Tone, who was making the all-star team. He was one of the better young players in the game. He was becoming one of the best young players in the game, right? But he wasn't improving in terms of a scorer. He was still 6. He seemed that he had plateaued in year 3, and like that was all we were going to get, which suggested to me that I don't think this guy's working on his game. Like I see what you do in the summer where you're shooting the basketball and it's just not translating. Well, the reason why it's not translating is because it's upstairs. With that being said, what he did in Philadelphia with him getting attacked the way he did, that wasn't just him, Tone. So let's make sure we clear that it was him and it was the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oh, yeah, they did wrong. I agree.
They completely botched this. I equate it to, Tone, we're out and you got jumped And instead of me getting in a fight, I just watched. I just watched you get jumped, and I didn't.
No, worse. You got jumped, and I said, "Why would you say something like that?" That's why you got jumped.
I blamed you. I'm gonna blame you for getting jumped, and that's basically what Philadelphia did to Ben Simmons. And I could understand him wanting out. Now, I could also understand the other aspect of it too, Tone, where you look at a guy who's that young going, because I was raised in a different time where, listen, I got to get better. I have to be better. But to just show up like he's been showing up, and I think that they botched this because he wasn't ready. Physically or mentally, he was not ready. And because he wasn't ready, if they would have just came out and said he's not ready, that would have been the end of it. That would have been the end of it.
Like, I would have been very happy if they said, listen, based on his situation with his back, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to return this playoff. That's it. And then if miraculously he does come back, hey, great news. Recovery was faster. And now he's an injection of energy and defense into a team.
Right.
What they did was they shoot themselves in the foot, because if he does, you know injuries, you have setbacks. So now you have to explain, oh, there was a setback. Oh, no one believes that. But if you said, look, he's not coming back, it's not happening.
Right.
Because now it's like, oh, he had a setback mentally and physically. He's not. It's a bad look. It hurts his reputation even more than it already is. Mm-hmm. But I was wrong. John Stockton, Ben Simmons are not the best thieves in the NBA. I stand corrected. It's the refs.
Oh, here we go.
Games 1 and 2 in Philadelphia.
Here we go.
The free throws are skewed so heavy to the Sixers. They blow out the Raptors. Game 3, we all agree it should have been called a technical foul at the end of overtime on Doc Rivers for running cross half court to the Raptors bench. Automatic technical. Raptors shoot the free throw and get the ball with 9 seconds left. And this series would be 3-2 in favor of the Raptors, because the last 2 games where it's somewhat consistent, that's all I ask for. Somewhat consistent officiating. Who won those 2 games? And yesterday in Philadelphia, pretty convincingly too. Did you see the fans? Did you see the fans leave with 3 minutes left in the game? I love Sixers fans. I love Sixers fans. They were like, they're booing JWill Embiid and walking out with 3 minutes left in the game. I love this.
What I am going to tell you, and I'm going to be very candid right now when I tell you this, Tone. So you're telling me, because we did this, you and I had this conversation before the series started. This does not have to be complicated. No, this doesn't. This could be very simple. I have Hakeem Olajuwon and you don't. Now what we have is a battle of coaching wits, and you're going to lose. I'm not saying that.
You did say that.
I'm not saying that it's possible. I'm saying you're going to lose. So now, Tone, I had to watch Doc Rivers over the course of his coaching career blow the most 3-1 leads in NBA history. There isn't a coach in his 75-year history who has blown more 3-1 leads, right? So I had to watch him blow the most 3-1 leads in NBA history. So you're going to sit there with that smirk on your face, Tone, and tell me that now I have to watch him blow a 3-0 lead too? That's what you're telling me? I'm out.
First
Tone,
in NBA history.
listen to me what I'm telling you, Tone. I will not subject myself to that. I'm not. I'm out. You're not going to get me to – I'm out, Tone.
Let me ask you a question.
Tone. You listen, Tone.
Let me ask you.
Oh, my God. I can't handle it.
Let me ask you a question. So we have already established Doc Rivers has blown the most 3-1 leads as an NBA in history. The teams, let me give you some numbers, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So teams that have gone up 3-0 are 143-0. Okay? Teams in the NBA that have led 3-0 are 143-0.
So you're telling me that 100 and 100 oh my God.
In fact, the Toronto Raptors are only the 7th team in that 143 games. They're the 7th team to even force a game 6. In 140, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back with the cheap seats. In that 143 games, the Raptors are only the 7th in NBA history to force game 6.
Not game 7.
Not game 7.
I've seen a team force game. I saw Dallas. I saw Portland force game 7 in 2003.
They might be that list gets
Dallas
shorter.
had them up. Dallas had them up.
That list gets shorter. So here's my question. So Doc Rivers, the most 3-1 blown leads in NBA history. If he becomes the first coach to blow a 3-0 lead, is he fired and never coaches again? Is it that bad? Or do you put some of it on the players? Are they going to make excuses? Embiid was hurt.
No. You absolutely put it on. You absolutely put it on the players because James Harden has to be better. No question about that. Because Tone, here's what happens. As a coach, I can only X and O you for so long, man.
Yep.
At some point, I got to get in the huddle and finish it. Go get me a bucket. We're winning this or we're losing this with you. At some point, I have to do that. I can X and O you to death. But at the end, my guys have to make plays. I got to turn guys loose. So when I have a guy in Doc Rivers who now has that tag, it's very difficult to get that off you. And there's nobody who will trust him with any sort of championship level team because the evidence is right here. You've shown us that you will not get it done when it matters the most. You've shown us that. Well, he did win the NBA championship. Yes, he did win the NBA championship. He did get to the NBA championship 2 times in 3 years. He absolutely did that. And we're rolling on that. With that being said, Tone, I cannot, and I'm telling you this right now, and I'm announcing it to our listeners all over the world. I will not watch Doc Rivers blow a 3-1 lead. I will not watch him blow a 3-0 lead. I'm out on this series, Tone. I can't do it. You are going to have to tell me what I can't watch anymore. I will not watch. It's like watching the Buffalo Bills lose Super Bowl number 5 in a row.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do it. I will not.
Okay.
You're not going to subject me to that, and I will not subject myself to that. No way. I'm not doing it.
Listen, you have Hakeem Olajuwon, like you say, but like he can't go 20-11 won't cut it.
That's not enough.
In an elimination game.
That's not enough.
Even for the series. I know he had the big 3 to win game 3, but even for the series, 24-11, although that seems good, he's a 30-12 guy on the season. We talked about guys playing different in the playoffs, and you told me Toronto has nobody that can stop Joel Embiid, and I said, no, they have everybody that can slow him down.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the difference. The difference, Tone, is that it was actually working in game 1. It was working in game 2. It was even working in game 3. I think he went 30-11 in game 3. It was working. All of a sudden, we kind of went away from that. I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about Philadelphia.
Okay, I'll let you out of the misery. I'll let you out of it. I'm going to run through. Let me run through quick.
I can't.
I'll run through quick. 3-1 are the Hawks done? The Hawks are down 3-1. Miami got that series?
I think that they're over, Tone. And the reason why I think they're over is because Trae Young is completely bottled up. And he's the engine that makes them go. He is. He's absolutely the engine that makes them go. No question about that.
Boston and Miami are basically, I think, going to be in that second round. I guarantee you we're going to see a game where neither team scores, I was going to say 100, but maybe 90. We might see like a 91, 88, 87, 84. Like it's going to remind me of 90s playoff basketball.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Boston's going to have to see Milwaukee.
No. Boston's oh, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. If they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yes, Boston's going to have to see Milwaukee in the next round.
The way this bracket is set up, it's wrong. But anyways, yes. Okay, so then we're both I think Miami's got Atlanta beat. I'm not going to subject you to Toronto and Philly.
I'm out, Tom.
Toronto I'm out, Tom. Like I called at the beginning, Toronto and 7. Milwaukee, Chicago. That series done?
I think that series is over. I don't think that they have anything for those guys. I think that the way they handled it, we're talking about a team, Tone, that they beat Chicago at home in those 2 games by an average margin of 27. Smoked them in both of the games that they played them in Chicago. They handled them. So I think Chicago's out.
All right. To recap, Boston has eliminated the Nets 4-0. All right. Phoenix and New Orleans is now a series.
Yes,
tied
it is,
at 2.
Yes, it is.
Booker is hurt. We don't know about his return necessarily. Can Phoenix still win this series?
I still think that they win the series, Tone. I just think it's going to be a lot tougher, man. When you take 26 a game out of the lineup, we got to completely revamp our offense. And we got to do something completely different than what we've already been doing. You said this to me in the past, Tone, about the next man up. And there's a reason why you play behind somebody. In basketball in particular, there's a reason why you play behind another guy. And the reason why you play behind this guy is because you're not as good as this guy. You're not. So there's very few times where you have a Manu who says, hey, I'll come off the bench, even though he probably could be a starter on any other team. Yeah. But that's not going on the regular. So when you take 26 a game out the lineup, you completely throwing these guys off the track. Now, I think that Herb Jones has done a great job on Chris Paul. I think that's a great coaching move by Willie Green, absolutely. But I still think that they handle New Orleans. I just think it's going to be 6-7 games now instead of the 4 or 5 games that I thought it was.
Get your popcorn ready. New Orleans upsets the Suns. Brendan Ingram is a bona fide scorer.
Yes, he is.
And that defense is helter-skelter. And because of the injuries, I think you're going to see Chris Paul, unfortunately, I think that injury in game 4, I think, is going to linger, unfortunately, and hamper his play. I hope it doesn't. I always say this. I always want to see series where everybody's fully healthy so I can see your best against my best. But I think with Booker and Chris Paul's health, I think that's going to be the deciding factor.
Soon as you see
what's
Chris
turning
Paul,
out to be a fun series to watch.
Soon as you see Chris Paul limping to the bench or grabbing his arm or something like that, going to the bench, I see you cringe all the time.
Because listen, I've said this. The reason I had people attacked me when I said I had Chris Paul when we were talking about all-time point guards. I said I have him at 11, and they said, "Why do you have him at 11?" And I said, "He just when it matters most in the playoffs, it's not that he doesn't perform. He always seems to get hurt." And listen, I get it. You can't. Sometimes it's bad luck. Sometimes it's whatever. You can't control injuries. But I'm like, if I can't have a guy who is great lead me to the finals, how can I put him top 10? So then last year when he led them to top 10, and although he played hurt, he was playing. Like he wasn't hurt enough that he couldn't play, and he led them to the finals. I said, okay, he creeped into my 10. Well, if I look at how many years has he been in the league?
Since
17, 18, 19 years, 16 years?
2006, yeah.
One time I've seen him go through the playoffs not getting hurt. Once. So if I got to go by averages and historically, he tells me he's going to get hurt. That's just what he does.
Yeah.
So I don't like it, but that's how it is. I watched the Mavericks game yesterday, the Mavericks and the Jazz. And as I watched, really, really watched Luka, do you know sometimes, I don't know if you ever did this. I did this a couple of times to help boost my ego a little bit, but I've also seen other guys do it when I got older and couldn't do it anymore. You ever see a guy comes to the Y and he's clearly he either plays in Europe or he's a pro, he's like a G leaguer guy, right? No one knows him. And he comes in and he plays with a bunch of guys at the Y, and you can just tell he's better than everybody else on the court. He's shooting logo threes. He's taking it he's dunking on people. That's what I felt Luka was yesterday. He was toying with whoever was guarding him. I mean, he had Gobert try to on the perimeter, and he just drove in on him, 2 double fakes, and then this backwards, and then he can't guard me on one of the best defensive players in the he was just 2 steps behind the 3-point line. He just looked at me like, I forgot I got this. That's what he looked like last night. He's giving a shimmy. He's giving a shake. If that's the Luka we're getting, now get it. Dallas is a 4 seed, so technically it's not an upset. But having Luka miss the first 2 games, it's a surprise that they're up 3-2, and we're going to see Luka. I think we're going to see Luka in the second round.
This series was won by the Dallas Mavericks in game 2.
Yeah.
No Luka. There's no way we come back to Salt Lake City tied 1-1. No, your best player.
You have to be 2-0. Have to.
Absolutely. We have to come back to Salt Lake City up 2-0 because we demoralize them if we do that. Only except you gave them that game, and now you find yourselves in a dogfight of a series. I think that Dallas wins this series in 7. I think that Utah wins game 6. But I think Dallas wins. I think they come back home, and I think that they handle Utah in game 7, which I had Utah winning this series, and I had them winning this series based solely on the fact of how well they defended. Donovan Mitchell takes a lot of bad shots. Not only does he take a lot of bad shots. Is he going to
play game 6?
He might not even play game 6.
So that's why I have it over. If Donovan Mitchell's hamstring is
right.
If he's out.
Now that I thought of it, I'm glad you just mentioned that because he did get hurt. But with him getting hurt, if he doesn't play in game 6, I think that they're going to have a really tough time beating Dallas. Even though Donovan Mitchell, he takes a lot of bad shots, Tony. Not only does he take a lot of bad shots, he's very much a liability on defense. He doesn't defend nearly as well as I'd like for him to defend. As the athlete that he is and as smart as he is, he doesn't defend nearly as well as I'd like to see him defend.
Do you think he kind of I don't want to say not takes plays. Do you think he isn't as effective on defense because in the back of his mind, he knows he's got Gobert back there to kind of clean up his messes a little bit? Do you think he falls into that trap sometimes?
And that's even worse, Tom, because I would be more effective. Why do you think Marcus Smart is as good as he is? Because I got Robbie Williams behind me. When you have an elite rim protector, that makes me take more chances. That means I'm more aggressive on defense, right? I do more things defensively, but when you got a guy like Rudy Gobert behind you and he finds himself just in no man's land a lot of times, I don't think defensively. Well, they called him out, Tom. If you remember, I think it was game 4 where Jason Kidd said, we're going to go after him. And lo and behold, they did go after him. Donovan Mitchell starts to play defense. Why does it take another team saying that we're going to go after him for you to turn up the volume on your defense? Either you're a competitor or you're not. Which one is it? So
defense more than anything else is skill, 50%, effort, 50%. If you don't have both, forget about it. And sometimes effort can overcome some of this lacking of skill and vice versa, but you got to give both. And if you're not, you're getting burned. All right. So I think I've got Dallas in 6. Do you think, does it depend on Mitchell's injury?
I think it depends on Mitchell's injury. But if he doesn't play, Tony, it'll be a lot more competitive than we think. But I do think that Dallas will beat them if he doesn't play.
Warriors and Nuggets. Is that series over?
I think that series is over. All they did was just extend it to Wednesday night. That's all they did.
How do you go? How do you draft Curry, Clay, Draymond, and then like fall into Curry light with Jordan Poole?
Basically,
like, are they just that good or are they lucky?
It's a combination of both, Tom. It's absolutely a combination of both. And I think that Jordan Poole, he's going to succeed. Klay Thompson, I don't think Klay Thompson going to be there in the next 2 years. And I think that you left out another guy too, Tom. You left out Kuminga. He's going to succeed.
Oh yeah.
He's going to succeed Draymond Green. So they're basically.
And then you throw in Wiseman. Like the Warriors are going to be a good team for at least another 5-10 years.
Yeah, they basically set themselves up for the future, no doubt about that. If Wiseman was healthy, I'd have them as the favorites in the Western Conference. Even they could very well win the Western Conference. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. But if Wiseman was healthy, I'd absolutely have them as the favorites.
And they're going to play one of these two teams, Memphis and Minnesota, tied at 2.
Memphis and Minnesota.
That's a surprise to me.
Well, I remember you and I had this conversation, Tone, that I thought that this series was going to be more competitive than people thought. Yeah. So when Minnesota wins, Cat is 31-13. When they lose, he's 13-8. So it's obvious that we go as you go, big fella. That's the theme in this series. We're going as far as you're going to take us. When you get into the playoffs, your best players are the ones that are going to take you the furthest. Because I can't reiterate this enough, Tone. I can only X and O you for a little bit of time. After a while, you got to turn your best players loose. So with Minnesota and Memphis, Minnesota, we're going to go as far as Cat takes us. As good as Anthony Edwards is, as good as D'Angelo Russell is, with that energy that they have, that's predicated on Cat. When Cat comes out slow, they come out slow. Well, real quick, so I'll give you an example. You played with a big guy. When the big guy comes out, he's ready. How's that make you feel?
Oh, man. Life becomes easier. My confidence goes up. I feel. Look, I always used to say this. I go, when you're feeling good. To your point on defense, I know that I can play tougher on defense because if I get beat, you got my back because you're having a good day. Mm-hmm. But also, when my big man would come up to me like if I'll say this, days where I was having a bad shooting day, he would come up and be, just shoot it. I got you. It's in. But if you miss, I got. And I mean, I've had big men say to me, I'll get the rebound and kick it back out to you to shoot it again. Well, now guess what happens to my shot? He doesn't need to get a rebound anymore because I'm so confident that if I miss, he's just going to give it back to me. Now I'm shooting with confidence. Right. So yeah, they drive the whole team. In fact, I wanted to ask you about this. I was going to save it for the next show, but let's do it now because I read something on the score and it kind of upset me. Because you said how the big man goes, that's how Minnesota goes. Mm-hmm. And I read this, and I'll read you the headline: how the post became the NBA's new playmaking frontier. And I almost ripped my hair out because it talks about Embiid, Giannis, Jokic, and I almost pulled my hair and I said, are these guys 12? Have they ever watched basketball? Like for the first 50 years, everything ran through the post. We had a guy in Wilt Chamberlain who led the league in total assists in the 60s. It's always been into the big man, inside out, into the big man. He kicks it out for the threes or he posts up. Now, a lot of centers were black holes where they'd get the ball and they'd dribble, turn, hook shot.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the offense was run through the center. If the center didn't touch the ball, that wasn't an offensive. You didn't have an offensive possession. It came through the big. What do you mean if they would have said the resurgence of the passing big man.
Okay, we can get with that. Yeah. I can get with that logic. Absolutely.
The new playmaking frontier.
Just so you folks know, the offense that Michael Jordan was in the 90s, which was so awesome, and the offense that Kobe Bryant and Shaq were in the 2000s with Phil Jackson, the triangle, which was made by Tex Winters, was centered around it was centered around one guy, and it would be the big guy. The triangle, the center was the big man, and the center was the big man was the center of the triangle. That's the way it worked.
The triangle, yes. Mm-hmm. So I forget. I apologize. I forget his name. Tex Winters was an assistant in like the 40s. Yeah. For I forget his name, but it was actually his triangle offense. Tex Winters learned it from this head coach. I believe in. I don't want to mess up, so I won't say his name or the school's name. I'll look it up and I'll post it right here. Right there. So, but what was it for? It was a read and react motion offense to give the center more room to operate.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually now because we saw the Bulls and we're like, well, their center was like Bill Cartwright. Well, clearly they made it work without a center, but it was actually to your point. It was based on the center.
It was centered around the big man. That's the way the triangle
because that's who was the most important player back then.
Correct. Absolutely. So to hear that, I don't know where you can get that logic from because the offense. One of the main reasons why I dug basketball so much. My uncle was the one who got me into basketball. The main reason why I dug basketball so much was watching Jabbar, watching Ewing, watching Olajuwon. That's where the offense started. It was a little bit even in the 80s when they sped the offense up. The offense was ran through the big guy. Now. I had made a post a little while ago, Tone, where we talked about is the big man back? Well, I think that the big man never left. He just got updated, kind of like software, where the way he was playing, Ewing, Shaq, Olajuwon, David Robinson, those guys are gone. Okay, we already know that. But now we got guys like Joker, Embiid, Giannis, just big guys who they step out and they extend the offense. But we can still run the O through them. We can absolutely still run the O through those guys. So to think that the offense wasn't ran like that back in the day,
when I read it, it drove me nuts. And so, I'm all about being fluent. So let me give you the history of the triangle. So Sam Barry at USC, the University of Southern California, creates the triangle offense. One of his players is Tex Winters. Mm-hmm. Tex Winters then takes that triangle offense and further develops it. He's the Houston Rockets and Kansas State coach. So he further develops it where he used to play for Sam Barry in the 40s. And then he brings it to Phil Jackson and the Bulls and then the Lakers. And then the rest, I guess, is kind of his history on the triangle offense. And in fact, Steve Kerr uses with a slice of Greg Popovich's motion offense somewhat of the triangle offense as well. He's further developed it and changed it for the Warriors. So if you go look at the Warriors offense, it has a lot of those triangle kind of pieces to it as well. Yeah. So when I read that, I just, okay. Speaking of the past, it's round 2 of the greatest franchise in NBA history. Mm-hmm. We have a rematch of this current year's playoffs to start us in the East. We have the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Toronto Huskies / Toronto Raptors. We probably should have used Husky players. We didn't even think of that. Anyway, first NBA game in history. New York Knicks, Toronto Raptors in Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, just FYI.
47, yes, sir.
All right, so the Sixers, I don't know if we made any changes, but we had Cheeks, Dr. J, Chuck, Charles Barkley, Dolph Shays, Moses Malone, Allen Iverson. I don't think we changed anybody there. The Raptors, we had Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, Valanciunas, Doug Christie.
I think Philly beats them. I think that they had too much down low. As good as Valanciunas is, as good as Chris Bosh is. I mean, I don't think they're any match for Moses. I don't think that they're any match for Moses. When I think about on the perimeter, I think about how good DeMar DeRozan is. I think about how good Kyle Lowry is. But Kyle Lowry will tell you the guy who welcomed him to the NBA was Allen Iverson. So I think Philadelphia handles them in 6 games.
Here's the thing with these teams. We probably should have figured this out at the beginning. I wonder when are they playing? Because in today's game, more free-flowing and open, although they have Dr. J and Chuck. Oh, maybe that's fine. The Raptors have better shooting, right? You have Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, etc. Heck, even Valanciunas. But Valanciunas back then, that's the difference. It's not this Valanciunas. It's the Valanciunas that was young who didn't shoot from the outside.
Right.
The interesting part is, had the NBA not had this crazy rule that expansion teams couldn't have the first overall pick,
Which is
Iverson,
nuts, by the way.
we'd have Iverson on the Raptors right now instead of probably Doug Christie, and then my decision might change. But I've got the 76ers winning this one as well. I think Dr. J and Barkley as the second and third options. We don't talk about how great Moses Malone was. And then you still have Iverson. I like Iverson actually coming off the bench. I really like Iverson coming off the bench. Even though he's a better player than Cheeks, I like him coming off the bench. So yeah, I'm with you. I got sadly to say I think it's the Sixers.
I'm definitely starting Iverson. As much as I love Cheeks, I got to start Iverson. We've seen Iverson come off the bench, and we already.
Oh yeah, he didn't like coming off the bench.
No,
you're absolutely right. Yeah. You're right. You're right. We got to start him, or else he won't play. You're right.
Screw him up. Mm-hmm.
All right, then we got this. We've got the Nets and the Wizards.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Jason Kidd, Kerry Kittles, Keith Van Horn, Buck Williams, Brooke Lopez, Richard Jefferson, going up against the Wizards, John Wall, Bradley Beal, Jeff Malone, Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes. Wow. Gilbert Arenas.
I think that Gil would do his best to get in a one-on-one with Jason Kidd and basically try to dominate Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd is not going to do that with him. Jason is going to get everybody else involved, and I think that they're going to speed the game up. Wes Unseld is going to speed the game up, too, with his ability to rebound and his ability to kick the ball out. He's going to try to speed the game up, but the difference is that I think that Gilbert Arenas is going to shoot them out of the game. He's not going to get Unseld. He's not going to get Elvin Hayes.
He's coming off the bench. You just bench him.
That's what you're going to have to do, because otherwise, I think that the Nets handle these dudes. No question about it in 5-6 games.
You think the Nets handle them?
I think the Nets handle them simply because I look at Gilbert Arenas and I think that he's going to be the difference, and I think he's going to shoot them out.
All right. What if I sub out Gilbert Arenas and bring in 40-year-old Jordan?
No. Because Jordan shows up on his team, and Mike still think he's 25. He still think he's the best player on the team. No, that makes it worse. No.
So you got the Nets?
I do have the Nets.
I really thought you were going to say the Wizards because I was just looking at Wall, Beal.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, like I said, Gilbert Arenas, he's going to shoot them out. And John Wall, as good as John Wall is, he's going to get Elvin Hayes, and he's going to get Elvin Hayes, and he's going to get Wes Unseld involved. He's definitely going to get those guys involved. But what John Wall is not going to do is he's not going to score the basketball, and he's going to turn the basketball over. And then with them being down, Gilbert Arenas is going to come in and he's going to shoot them out of the game.
He might literally shoot them out of the game.
Literally.
All right, next, let's move on. Bulls and Bucks. So we're going to go with the Nets. So next round, we're going to see Nets and Sixers.
This is not simple right here.
We got Bulls and Bucks, and this is actually for as great.
Yeah.
Actually, I already think I know that I'm going to be upset with my own pick. So we've got Sidney Moncrief, Ray Allen, Oscar Robertson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Glenn Robinson, facing Norm Van Leer, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Artis Gilmore, and Derrick Rose.
On paper, that Milwaukee Bucks team, they just sound better. It's not even a question. They just sound better. And
Well, I'm getting defensive player of the year, right? Because I'm getting him at his best. I'm getting defensive player of the year, Sidney Moncrief, who, as a Milwaukee Buck with different pieces, swept Jordan and a different Bulls team. I believe in his rookie season. In his rookie season.
It was his rookie season.
So it was his rookie season. So it's not the same Jordan, but still. I've got, well, if I look at it up and down, okay, Jordan's the best player on the court, but Kareem's a close second.
Right.
Well, who's the third best player on the court?
Giannis, and it ain't a question.
Giannis. And then it's Pippen. So if we go two versus two, Jordan, Pippen, Giannis, Kareem, I'm like, okay, that's a good matchup. The difference is Moncrief, Ray Allen, and Oscar versus Norm, Horace Grant, Artis Gilmore. It's way to the Bucks.
Right. But I think you're thinking a lot about scoring, Tone. I'm thinking a lot about the dirty work. I'm thinking about Horace Grant being an all-league defender and how he's going to be able to handle big dog. How is he going to be able to handle
well, he's going to be starting up against Giannis. He can't handle Giannis.
He's going to have to deal with Giannis. So
like let's if we go, I know this is not how they play, but if we go Kareem versus Artis Gilmore, that's right, Kareem.
Jamal
offensively and defensively. Giannis versus Grant. It's Giannis offensively and defensively.
Yep.
Now, the way this is set up, it's Oscar and Pippen. Okay, Pippen's better defensively. Oscar's better offensively, but Pippen's not going to have the offensive game. He doesn't really have that offensive game where you're worried about him. Like, he's not going to shoot the lights out. Like, he's a fast break. He's going to get his dunks and whatever. And he's going to give Oscar a really hard time, but Oscar.
Well, wait a minute, Tone. Let me ask you this: why don't we move Oscar to the 1, which is his natural position?
Okay.
And we move Glenn Robinson to the 3, which is his natural position. Okay. And we have Sidney
Moncrief
Moncrief coming off the bench. Off the bench.
Okay, great.
Why don't we do that?
Okay, so then we got Robinson and Pippen. So I think Pippen does neutralize Robinson a little bit on that side. And again, Scotty's not an offensive. We're not necessarily worried about him. Then you got Ray Allen and Jordan. Right. So we already know Jordan. He's
Jordan dominates that.
Jordan dominates that match.
Yes, he does.
But then you got Oscar versus Norm Van Leer, and I think he serves him. So I got 4 out of the 5 matchups clearly in my favor.
Now
I just don't know how I bet against Jordan, but
right. But I'm asking you, Tone, who's coaching this team? Phil Jackson is coaching the Bulls. Who is coaching the Milwaukee Bucks? And what are we running? Because are we running a triangle? Are we getting everybody else involved? Is that what we're doing? And what are we running with the
You're probably running Kareem's. Well, is it the
Kareem
Oscar? Is it that Kareem Oscar? Is it
What's what I'm saying, Tone? I'm thinking about Jabbar, and I'm thinking about Giannis getting the ball off the backboard and going with it. And then Giannis slowing it up because Giannis wants to play fast because that's his game. But when he gets in a half court, they're going to have to double him. And Giannis is a great playmaker. Add that to the fact that Oscar Robinson, being the double-digit distributor that he is, I think I'm going to go with Milwaukee in 7, Tom. I think they better.
I don't know that I've ever picked against Jordan in a series.
I don't think I have.
and I'm about to. Because I look at the rest of the team.
I think Milwaukee beats them in 7.
I think Milwaukee beats them. So I got the Bucks moving on. Wow. Sorry, Mike. Pacers, Pistons. Oh, sorry. Pacers, Pistons. That was the first round. Pistons beat the Pacers in 7. So we got Pistons, Celtics. Someone's getting hurt. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill, Bob Lanier, Andre Drummond, Vinnie Johnson against the Boston Celtics team that is.
Vinnie Johnson got to come off. Dave Bing got to be on that crew.
Yeah, we did make that replacement. Who did we replace Vinnie Johnson with?
Dave Bing.
Dave Bing. You're absolutely correct. I'm going to write it down this time so I don't forget. Okay. So Dave Bing replaces Vinny, although the microwave was buckets.
Was buckets?
It was buckets. That's why he's called the microwave, man. He heats up quick. Celtics. Okay, so the Celtics have. I don't even know that I need to look at the list, but I'll find it. Here it is. Bob Cousy, Havlicek, Bird, McHale, Russell. Did we leave Pierce in, or did we replace Pierce with Sam Jones?
No, Pierce comes off. Sam Jones
is in, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That one I remembered. Okay, so we got Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Bill Russell, Sam Jones. Wow.
I think they smoked Detroit in 5 games.
You think they smoked them?
I don't think they beat Detroit. I think they smoked Detroit. Smoked them. Defensively, we match you. So if I'm not mistaken, Tone, you can make the argument, because I know I can. Bill Russell might be the greatest defensive player ever. I know how you feel about Dennis Rodman, but Bill Russell.
I have them 1-2. I have them 1-2. Yeah.
Bill Russell might be the greatest defensive basketball player ever. So in terms of what Detroit is doing defensively, Russ is doing the same thing defensively. Glass cleaner, right? So now when you look at, you got to match wits. I think Isaiah outplays Bob Cousy. I think he does. I absolutely think Isaiah outplays Bob Cousy. Detroit doesn't have anybody to match Bird. And collectively as a unit.
Grant Hill.
Well, Grant Hill, I don't think he matches Bird, because Bird is just so smart. I look at Grant Hill as the athlete that he is, but I think that Bird outplays him. Okay. All the way around, I think Bird outplays him. No doubt about that. Now, with that being said, I look at Boston just as a unit. And what they do, their ability to move the basketball, get up and down the floor, because there's a reason why they called Bob Cousy the Houdini of the hardwood. They did speed the game up, and he said it himself. Once we got Russ, we were gone. So they do want to play fast also. So with Bird and Russell, Bird, Russell, and McHale, I think they beat the Pistons in 5-6 games tops.
I think it's closer, but I think the Celtics, there's just too much firepower. It's too much. And although I think the backcourt of Thomas and Dumars, people forget Havlicek was good, man. People, I think, forget how good he was. So although I give the edge in the backcourt to Isaiah and Joe over Bob and John, I think you're right. In the front court, how do they compete with McHale, Russell, and Bird? Is just, they've got shooting, they can run, they can slow it down, they've got defense. Let's be honest, the one thing about Bill Russell that, we always talk about is defense, but I think it's very, very, some people talk about it, some people never do, but I do. The best glue guy in the business, right? Everybody on the Celtics said it was Russell that kept us focused, that kept us together. Russell became a coach. Like he's that a good coach. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's closer. I think 6 games.
He's in the Hall of Fame, not just as a player. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame as a coach too. Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're gonna do the West round 2 next time, and then next week on Wednesday we got Sixers, Nets, Bucks, Celtics. That is going to be huge. All right. Next up on the agenda is a conspiracy. Now, if I were to ask you what player does Chris Paul have the worst winning record against? Do you know the answer to that question?
What player? Who does he struggle against the most?
Yeah.
Tony Parker?
What if I said to you, there's someone that Chris Paul has never beaten? Someone. I've taken the word player out.
I would think,
or did you know this already?
I can't say Tony Parker. I do know this, though. I think I know this. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think you're going toward officiating here. That's what it sounds to me like.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds to me like. And when I think about officiating, it's well known that Chris Paul and Scott Foster are not the best of friends.
Not only are they not the best of friends, and this is where the conspiracy comes in. Chris Paul in the playoffs, when Scott Foster is officiating, his record is 0-14.
Yikes.
Not only is it 0-14, Scott Foster has joked with him as he's walked up at the beginning of the game and said, I'm reffing another one. You've never won when I've reffed.
Oh, boy.
Which I think is really an appropriate one for him to say.
Oh, absolutely.
2, for him to even know. How do they is this a conspiracy? Is Scott Foster just, I don't like Chris Paul. I don't know, because of with the players union. I don't know if it's the way that he's a jerk. Let's be honest. Chris Paul when you see Chris Paul on the court, he's a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hold it against him. Sometimes you got to be a jerk on the court, but he's a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's a jerk, and Scott Foster's like, I don't like that. Is Scott Foster dictating these games?
I don't know if he's
taking opportunities. Well, it's conspiracy, so we got to go crazy. Is he helping?
I don't know. I
Chris
think
Paul.
I will tell you this, Tone, as a former official, there are games that I ref differently, and I had to, simply because the tone of the game. Now, when I recognize that there's somebody that I'm not particularly, nobody's really fond of me as a referee, but I have a contentious relationship with a player. I find myself reffing a little bit more aggressively. I try not to, but I find myself reffing a little bit more aggressively. Now, I don't think this is a conspiracy. It's a fact. You've never won a game when I've reffed and when I've reffed. So,
but is it just coincidence, or is Scott Foster dictating the game?
I don't think it's cool. I'm not a fan of coincidence, Tone, and you have a difficult time selling me that I've reffed 14 of your games and you've won 0. I think that I have something to do with that. Even if I'm not trying, I think that I have something to do with that. No doubt about that.
How does it get to 14? Like when you see, like they track this. That's how we know that it's 0-14. They track this. Yeah. Like when it starts to get to 7, 8, 9, 10, like doesn't the NBA think, hey, we should probably take a look at this? Perhaps we shouldn't have Scott Foster reffing his games.
You would think so, right? Well,
because you don't want this. You don't want this hanging around after the Tim Donaghy stuff, and
no, I don't.
All that. You don't want this floating out there, or maybe they do. Maybe they like having us talk about this kind of stuff.
Well, add that to the fact that now it's not news, Tone. It's not smoke anymore.
It's fire.
Right. He's ref 14 games. So this is not something that's lingering. Well, he's not very good when he refs. No, listen, when this dude refs, he does not win, period. So this isn't something that I don't think is a conspiracy more than it's something that has a lot of merit to it. It'd be one thing if Chris Paul was 8-8 with this dude reffing and he had a losing record where he was like 2-5 in the playoffs. When this guy refs, I don't win ever. That's not a coincidence. No, that's not a coincidence.
0-14 in the playoffs. Chris Paul, Scott Foster. Listen, they don't even hide that they don't like each other.
It's not news.
It's not news. They don't like each other, and I think that is not. I don't think that's good. I don't like. No. It's not good for the game. Mm-hmm. The fact that the part that really bothers me, because normally I would have taken Scott Foster's side, because I think Chris Paul pulling people's shirt out and then getting them a technical for having their shirt untucked, and he's an agitator on the court. Yeah, I want him on my team. I don't want him on the other team type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like each other. He refs differently when Chris Paul's on the court. Mm-hmm. You can't have that. It takes away from the integrity of the game. So I really don't like it. Again, I think it's not a conspiracy. Nor do I think it's a coincidence. I think it's, look, if there's a 50-50 ball, the other team's going to get it, right? If there's a 50-50 foul, like where it's close, Chris Paul's never getting the benefit of the doubt. And that's not good because, listen, we know that you might not like, we talked about reffing before, you might not like the outcome of all the calls, but you would hope that the refs look at it from an unbiased kind of, hey, let me make the best call that I can make. Look, you miss calls, you make the bad call. It happens. But if every single time I see these two guys or this guy, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to the other side, that takes away from the integrity of the game. So
add that to the fact, Tom. Add that to the fact that I shouldn't have a public relationship, whether good or bad, with an official. I should not as a player. That's just bad for the game all the way around.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know. We call it a conspiracy, but if it's out in the open, well, I guess no, they're not admitting it. So technically, conspiracy 0 to 10. I give it a 10.
I give it a 10 too.
Scott Foster, do better. All right, mail drop.
Drop.
We're gonna start in the NFL. We're gonna talk about the draft on our next episode, but I want to go back in time. Actually, I don't want to. This was the question. I do want to, but it's also because it's a question. NFL's running back. Who you picking? Barry Sanders or Walter Payton?
Well, Tone, you know how I feel about skill and production, Barry Sanders was one of the most elusive runners that I've ever seen. What he reminded me of is if you ever seen a cat get chased and how that cat how he stops on a dime, pew, pew. That's how Barry Sanders was. But as a avid 49er fan who bleeds 49er red, whenever Walter Payton was on, I was in front of the TV. No question about that. He was the guy. I look at him very much like I looked at Adrian Peterson. When I say that, I mean, I looked at Walter Payton and I thought to myself, why don't we have him? When I see all running backs, when I used to watch Walter Payton, I used to watch him thinking to myself as a 49er fan, why isn't he on our team? We need him. As good as he was, we're talking about a guy who he was better than Barry Sanders in the playoffs, right? He was better than Barry Sanders in the playoffs. He was a more complete back than Barry Sanders. Walter Payton actually punted the football. He was a punter on Chicago too. So I do remember him doing that. Now,
you should see his completion percentage on the halfback option.
Right.
One of their best quarterbacks too.
Yes, he actually threw the football too. I think he was a better all-around back than Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was an elusive runner. Barry Sanders was one of the best runners that I ever seen, but his production dipped in the playoffs. Walter Payton's, his production was really good in the playoffs. He wasn't great in the playoffs, but he was good enough in the playoffs. He was better than Barry. I think he was a better running back than Barry.
I tell the way I break it down for everybody, I'm going to throw in a third back here just to kind of, because my top three backs are not in this order, are Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton. And the way that I break it down is I said, look, Jim Brown was the greatest pure runner kind of power back ever. And I don't want to say that I've ever seen because I've only watched footage and I've watched games, but obviously I didn't watch him live. Barry Sanders is the most elusive. I don't even say one of, I say the most elusive backs I've ever seen. Now, sometimes I got him into trouble, right? Where he would, maybe where he could have just hit the hole and got 3 yards. He was trying to get 50 and he went backwards and lost a couple of yards. But in terms of elusiveness, you're right. You said chasing cats. I was like, I immediately, as you said that, thought about that part in Rocky where Mick tries to have Rocky try to catch the chickens. Right? Like that's trying to catch Barry Sanders. But the reason I have Payton over all of them, and I have him number one, is when I look at what everything you ask a running back to do. Yeah. So while I admit Jim Brown is probably the better power back and Barry Sanders is more elusive, no one's ever going to argue when I say this. Is Walter Payton one of the greatest pure runners? And everyone's going to say, well, yeah, he's in that conversation. Absolutely. Even if he's not one, he's in the conversation. Mm-hmm. When I say who's one of the best receiving backs, Walter Payton's in that conversation. Now, he might not be number one, but he's in that conversation. Barry and Jim Brown are not in that conversation.
No, they're not.
When I say who's the greatest blocking back in the history of the NFL, Walter Payton's in that conversation. Mm-hmm. Not many. So for me, and forget the punting, forget the halfback option again, where he was very successful throwing the ball. So if I look at rushing, receiving, and blocking, the top 3 things you ask a back to do, only one is in the conversation for best ever in all 3. So there's also the production, there's also the touch, like all that stuff is great. But I mean, if I look at just core what you do, he's in the conversation. He's the only one. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have him over Barry. Again, Barry's in my top 3. It's not like I'm hating on Barry Sanders. I saw him twice a year, every year, and occasionally in the playoffs with the Bears. Like it's just, listen, I've seen more than enough of Barry Sanders to appreciate Barry Sanders. All right, number 2. This one is, I'm going to leave it to you. It's not for you, but I'm going to leave it to you. Who's the better? It says dribbler, so I'm going to read it as it stands. I'm not going to say ball handler, I'm a dribbler. Jason White Chocolate Williams, JWill, or Kyrie Irving? Uncle Drew or White Chocolate? Who you got? Better dribbler.
White Chocolate was nice with the ball, but his combinations weren't what Kyrie's were. And not only was his combinations not as crisp as Kyrie didn't just dribble the basketball. It was with a purpose. He was doing it to get somewhere. And it wasn't just here, it was get somewhere. I thought Kenny Anderson was the best ball handler that I had ever seen. But when I see Kyrie Irving, and his behind the back exchange where it wasn't just side to side. It was in traffic and it was to get somewhere. Not just his behind the back exchange, his cross where when he gets by a guy, he just leaves him in no man's land where they have no choice but to foul him or they're dead. Kyrie Irving, his ability to just handle the basketball and to be with a purpose, I think he was better than White Chalk.
I think I do agree with you, but I'll add this caveat. I think it's because he had the advantage of watching Jason Williams do it, and these other guys do it before him. Because I guarantee you, in 10 years from now, we're going to say, is Joe Smith better than Kyrie? And we're going to say, well, what you see Joe Smith do is and it's because, well, yeah, because he saw Kyrie and he saw and he saw these other guys. So I think, and Kyrie clearly worked on it. Now there needs to be, you have to have some talent. You have to have a lot of finger and hand strength. You need to have a lot of coordinate. Like you have to have certain things to be even able to do it. But I think when you see, like I use, who is it? You could use Pistol Pete when you see Maravich, right? And you're seeing him back then going behind the back, between the legs. Well, he didn't just make that up. He saw the Harlem Globetrotters do it. Why did the Harlem Globetrotters do it? Well, one, they were doing it kind of for show, but two, because they're like, hey, I can do this. And it makes it more, they were trying to be entertaining as well. Right. So I think, there's that evolution of, I watched you do it and I'm going to take it a step further. Dunking, right? Vince Carter, I'll use him, in 2000 got to see Jordan, Neek, Dr. J. He got to see all those guys before and say, okay, how can I add to that? How can I put a different twist on this? And so I think Kyrie is the better ball handler, but I think he also, or dribbler, but I think it's also because of the fact he got to watch those guys. Yeah. And he's just super talented. And like I said, Jason Williams reminds me, and maybe I'm not saying something that everybody already knows, but he reminds me of those guys on, like, remember And One? Remember we used to watch And One? Yeah, where they used to they just dribble to dribble. They wouldn't go anywhere. And I remember back then, because I would play against guys like that, and they would dribble. And then the second they tried to go somewhere, I was like, strip. And I'm like, man, that was great. You dribbled for 20 seconds. You looked really funny. And then the second you tried to get to the hoop, I stripped you and off we went. Nothing. So there's no purpose to it. It looks great. Yeah. But if there's no so I think that's a really good point you brought up. All right. We're back to I like these one-on-one challenges. It's an interesting one. Steve Francis in a one-on-one versus Penny Hardaway. Who gets the win?
I think Hardaway does. Number one, he's bigger. Number two, Hardaway, he had more in his game. Hardaway had box work. Hardaway had a money mid-range game. Hardaway, Steve Francis wasn't one of those guys Steve Francis did a lot of unnecessary things. Hardaway didn't do that. Hardaway got to the point. Like Hardaway wouldn't to throw the ball between his legs 6 or 7 times. It's one dribble, 2 dribbles, pull up. One dribble, pull up. One dribble right to the basket. That's who Hardaway was. And the athlete that Steve Francis was, Hardaway was just as good as an athlete. No doubt about that. And his ability in the mid-range as Steve Francis being able to hop, Hardaway could hop just like that too, right? And he could get to the lane. He could get in the lane, jump over the top of you. He'd get you in the mid-range, jump over the top of you, back you down, jump right over the top of you. I think that he handled Steve Francis in a one-on-one.
I think the thing about Francis that Steve Francis is a good shooter, but I think the best thing about Steve Francis was in transition. He could get out there and he was so athletic and he'd just get out on the break and just jump over much bigger players. And then when people think of Penny Hardaway, we always called him the next Magic. And so people just assumed he's this tall point guard who passes. But in reality, he was a very athletic, very capable post-up player and shooter. So I think offensively, while it'll be different, they do different things. I think they're both equally, if not Penny a little bit more capable as a total offensive package. I think on the flip side, it's going to be defensively. Defensively, if Penny Hardaway in this one-on-one matchup, if he gets into trouble, well, I'm significantly taller than Francis. I'm just going to post him up because if you can jump just as high, but you're taller, well, heck, you've got that advantage. So, yes, and he's got that in his game. Whereas Steve Francis would have a heck of a time trying to post up Penny. He's just too long. Right. On the perimeter, defending, again, he's got these long arms. He's just too long. So while I would love to watch in their prime these two guys play.
Oh, it would have been so awesome.
Oh
my God, Tom.
But I think in this hypothetical, I've got maybe what's a Bleacher Report where they do those two guys. Do you notice it's almost always the younger player who wins those? Have you noticed that? Have you been watching that series or no?
I had not.
Okay, so they have this.
Oh, you're talking about like with Chamberlain and
thing,
with Chamberlain and Giannis,
Barkley
Bird.
against Embiid.
Yeah,
it's
stuff
almost
like that.
always. I've only seen the older player once, and I think it was Kyrie, and they blamed Kyrie because he went and meditated or something, and he didn't pay attention to the last point. Like they made it silly. But I was like, really? Every single younger player beats every. I don't know how I feel about that one. However, in this particular, I'd like to see him and Penny do it, and I think Penny gets the win. All right. So, that's a lot. That's a lot. Is there anything we're gonna talk about the draft, like I said on Friday? But is there anything you're looking forward to in the NFL draft? I'll be honest with you because I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not watching Thursday's draft. I'm not watching. You're gonna have to fill me in on the draft on Thursday because the Raptors are playing the Sixers in Game 6,
right?
And that's where I'll be. So
I'll peek my head. You going to the game? Are you going to the game, John?
That is where I will be.
Okay, going to the game, absolutely. So I'll peek my head in with the draft, and I'll keep you posted. No doubt about that.
Is there any? Do you think any crazy? Like, do you think any teams like right now? It's not a very deep quarterback draft.
No, it's not.
If you were a betting man, and I said quarterback top 10, not top 10, do you think a quarterback, just so you know, 6 of the last 7 years, a quarterback has been picked first overall. 6 out of the last 7 years. Myles Garrett, the only non-QB picked first overall. So here's the challenge. 1 through 10, 11 through whatever, quarterback. 1 through 10, will they be a quarterback or no?
I think it'll be 1 through 10. I don't think quarterback is a hard position to fill, Tone. And if you got a guy that you think can help you in the future, especially as a quarterback, the last thing you want is to let this guy drop to 15 and he turns out to be great for this team and you were at the 6th pick and you passed on him. That just looks really bad. It's better for me to grab a quarterback and him not turn out to be this as opposed to me not taking him and he turns out to be the franchise. It's much better for me to grab a quarterback than not to. So I wouldn't be surprised if this kid from Pitt is a top 10 pick. I'm
gonna put this out early so that I can say I like saying I told you so.
You do.
Not to you personally, but to in general, I like saying I told you so. Yeah. Not only will there be 1 quarterback taken in the top 10, 2. Both Carolina and Atlanta will take a quarterback. I'm not saying which. Actually, I'll tell you what. Pickett and Willis will both go in the top 10, most likely to, unless someone steps up and does something crazy with the trade. But I think Carolina and Atlanta both take quarterbacks in the top 10.
I don't think they pass on this. I don't think Carolina passes on this kid from Pitt. I don't.
So that's my hot take.
Yeah.
To end the show. So until then,
take it light, but take it.
It's the only thing we understand. I'ma stand till on Jersey in the stands. I'ma hit you on a slide.